We're here with Brian Kabaker, another one of the executives at HeartMath Institute. Hello, Brian. Good morning.
Good morning, Evan.
So, we've spoken with Catherine a little about how HeartMath came about, her personal story. We'd love to hear from you a little bit about how HeartMath is being implemented in the real world, the practical aspect, and what sort of results you're seeing out there.
Okay, great. I'd love to. One of the things that so impressed me about HeartMath when I was first learning about it, like 22 years ago when it was just starting, was the idea of appealing to like a total broad spectrum of people. Over the last 6-7 years specifically, I've been able to work with a group of people that's really been inspiring to me, and these are people that are caregivers of an extraordinary type. These are people that are veterans. These are active duty military service members. These are people in law enforcement and other first responders like firefighters and paramedics. Probably the groups that have most impressed me are the people in law enforcement and the service members. All right, because prior to working with them, I never considered them caregivers. All right, but after you get to know these guys and gals at a deep level, you realize, or I came to realize, that these people are very service oriented, that the majority of them are motivated by a deep heart core value of care and service for the country, for the city, for something that's much larger than themselves.
Isn't their motto to protect and serve?
To protect and serve.
It's
a real motto.
By understanding the body and how it works and through the research, we've been able to develop a number of programs and techniques especially that allow people to really self-regulate, maintain our center, stay composed, but especially in the heat of the moment. That could be something as simple as a traffic jam or things that are going on in staff meetings, but we also do work with law enforcement officers who really have to be able to maintain their composure when there's some very challenging situations that could truly be life-threatening in that kind of situation. But that just gives you a little bit of an idea that our tools and techniques are being used pretty much worldwide in a number of contexts.
It's wonderful that you mentioned the law enforcement, and it's such a hot button issue. It's certainly in our country right now. It's emotionally charged, and people are concerned. What can we do if the cops are running scared, but then they overreact, and they got to protect themselves too?
Sure.
How are you applying your technology for them?
Well, that's a complex situation, but that's just one of many. So this is very different than like a relaxation approach to stress management or something. This is really about transforming our own emotions in the moment they're occurring. So it's simple techniques that are simple, but yet it took a lot of research and a lot of understanding to get to the simplicity. So it's complexity crunched down into simple tools and techniques. And then we also have technology, physical technology, devices that you can measure, put a little clip on your ear or your finger and measure your heart rhythm. It's called heart rate variability. And that allows you to much more quickly learn those tools and techniques and learn how to shift into this optimal state we call coherence, which is where you shift into when you use these techniques properly. So it gives you a feedback tool that really helps facilitate and accelerate the learning process.
You watch the news, and a week doesn't go by where there's some media story about some interaction with a cop that didn't go well. What most people don't understand is what's it like from the perspective of, oh, I'm a police officer, and I'm doing this job every day. And they don't realize how little training a police officer actually receives in skills to maintain their own poise, composure, balance, and resilience. All right. Tons of training on tactical, active shooter scenarios and real important stuff. A lot of money spent on, all kinds of gadgets and technology, but when it comes to teaching an officer how they can maintain their composure and their poise and their resilience and their health and well-being for the long term hasn't been a priority yet. Okay. Fortunately, that's starting to change.
Yeah, I love the yet. It leaves opportunity and hope for the future.
That's right. It's starting to change, and more people in leadership, from chiefs of police, on down, are starting to get the message that we have to do more for our officers. You know, they're giving their lives. I mean, literally, not just the ones that are getting injured on the job, but after they retire, you know, their life expectancy is very low because of the accumulated stress, you know, from the job, the divorce rates, on and on and on, that these guys and gals go through. But there's a realization, okay, there is more that can be done.
And it's helping them too. So it's helping them do their job better, helping protect the people that they're charged to protect,
Yeah.
and helping themselves in the long run with their health and well-being.
Oh yeah, this is a story. One of the key things that most people in law enforcement aren't taught is how to shift and reset their physiology. All right, so an officer gets into some kind of a scenario. Let's say they've gone on a call where there's a domestic violence situation going on. Very stressful.
Something to diffuse. Yeah.
Right. They leave that call, they go on to something else, and this is actually a true story. The officer goes on to another call, and it's suicide. Person wants to commit suicide. All right. Without going into the details, he's there for a while, you know, too long. Leaves that call and gets another call where there's this ruckus at a pool party going on. All right. So within the course of about 4 hours, he's got 3 major incidents that he's dealing with. He arrives at the third incident not having learned how to shift and really reset his physiological baseline back to something that's like stable
After the first two.
after the first
Yeah.
two, and he loses his composure almost immediately. Whole thing's captured on video. He does a few stupid things like people will do when they're, you know, overamped, overstressed.
And they're on the news.
And they're on the news, and he loses his job, and he probably will never work in law enforcement again. This guy was like an 8-year veteran of the military. He was like Officer of the Year in the community. And to me, this is a perfect example of how we as a community, we set up our officers to fail like that. But we don't have to do that. And the good news is that's starting to change, okay? And we can teach them skills to be able to self-regulate and bring themselves back into a state of mental, emotional, and physical balance. So the next situation they're going into, it's from a much more calm, composed perspective, and it has a much higher ratio of success.
Beautiful. So we've talked about bringing this technology and the training to be able to self-regulate and have the resilience to be able to walk into the next situation with a renewed sense of calm and
Right.
having a handle on things. And how about you alluded to that education element to it as well. What about that? Like, do we need to get the HeartMath technology in every school in the world to just get this going and help create that shift? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Whether it's the technology or just the practicing of the techniques. I want to give you one story if I can, because we were talking about, well, how does this really impact the lives of, say, a cop, you know, day to day. So this was published in a study of a study that was done in San Diego, and part of the study was an evaluation by the officers, and this officer said, I want to share this one story. He said, I was on a call recently. I pulled somebody over. Guy ended up getting out of the car, all right? And he took, which is bad, you know, in the first place.
Can be threatening to the officer. In other
Yeah,
words.
yeah, yeah.
Why is this guy coming out at me?
And then when he faced the officer instead of like this, which gives the officer peace of mind, because, you know, it's like you can't do much like this. He faced the officer like this. So the officer immediately called for backup. All right, he said, but before he did that, as he was doing that, he took one breath. All right, and he shifted himself immediately into composure. He called for backup, and he dealt with the situation. All right, he said, when his captain arrived, the captain thought he was joking when he put out the call for backup, because every other time he called for backup, he literally screamed for backup and was upset for like 8 hours after.
We love to look at the practical applications and the takeaways of things, and we've talked about law enforcement, you know, implementation already and the potential it holds for them. And we discussed earlier about refugees
Right.
in Middle Eastern countries, Syrian refugees in particular. I understand that the HeartMath technology is alive and well over there and being implemented. What's it doing?
Well, very much so. One of our trainers, Majd is his name, is training especially families and children. And the stories and the pictures that are coming out of that work are just so heart-touching. I mean, when you see the faces of these young children, with the war behind them, literally in the pictures, and then how they look after they've gone through these programs and this training. You can just see the difference in their body language, their face. You can almost feel the shift that it's made for them. And one of the big problems that he was telling me that these kids have is wetting the bed at night because of all the stress and the anxiety. That's almost completely resolved when they learn to use these techniques. He's not just working with the kids, but also the mothers and the families. It's just been, there's so many stories of transformational changes that have happened in people's lives, even in the middle of something like the Syrian war.
When this technology was developed, was curbing bedwetting an intention,
No, not at
or
all, not
just
at all.
an unexpected byproduct?
Well, that certainly wasn't. We didn't develop HeartMath for that, of course not. But it was an indication of the stress that these children are under, right? Because some of these are older kids, and it's a symptom that why they're coming to him a lot of times is that would be the symptom. One of the things that he's able to resolve with them. But that's just such a small picture of what's really going on in those people's lives and how it's changing.
All right.
So we started working with service members in the Navy. The Navy had been given a mission called Detainee Ops, which was basically guarding all the prisoners in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the one in Guantanamo Bay. And they just kind of volunteered, quote, sailors from all over the world to come into this mission, and they would train them up and they'd send them over to one of these prisons, and there they were in one of the worst, jobs in the world, and it turned out to be the most stressful job in the entire Navy. All right, it wasn't being a submarine person, it wasn't being, a radar operator. It was being a detainee ops person in these prisons. So shortly after that happened, they came to us and asked us for some help in increasing the resilience of the men and women that were in these very challenging jobs. So we worked with them, wonderful people. Some of the most caring people I ever met were the people in the command and leadership people in the Navy, and we modified a program that we had for school teachers to make it culturally appropriate for service members, and then started rolling it out as these people were before they were deploying, on their mission. And the stories we got back, some of these stories they'll make a grown man cry, in terms of how the impact of these folks being able to learn skills to really self-regulate their mental, emotional, physical system. And indeed, the language that they like and that we embrace was to take charge of their mental, emotional, physical system, so that they have the energy to be who they, really are.
In their heart.
In their heart.
Yeah. I like to just call it managing our transmissions, what we're putting out there into the social ether.
Yeah.
It really feels like there's no end to the potential impact, benefits, and overall achievement of this global coherence that we all want to see from the techniques and tools being developed right here in Santa Cruz Mountains at HeartMath Institute. Well, I'm super inspired by all that you've shared and all we've learned in our time here.
It's great talking with you.
No, pleasure. We'd like to see you again and keep tabs on what you guys are up to and what a difference it's making out there in the world.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. We like to end all our interviews with a hug.
All right.